Hi and welcome back, and this is part 3 in the Blender Cube Array Animation tutorial series. There will be, I believe, a total of 4 parts, so we're almost there. So in part 2 I showed you how to keyframe your animation, and you can see here I've got a pretty simple, straightforward, just animating, rotating, scaling, and then it comes back to its finishing position here. I've got 250 frames, doing some pretty basic stuff. So in part 3, I want to show you how to set up the camera and be able to actually get some pretty cool shots. So here's how we do it. Okay, so you've got your camera in your scene, and what we're going to do is we're going to have the camera track to an empty, and that empty is going to actually control the camera in terms of what the camera's looking at. So let's go ahead and get started by pressing Shift A, and we're going to add in a new empty, and we're going to say empty, and we'll say plane axes. Now you can change the shape of the empty really. So if I choose this second one here called arrows, you'll see that the empty actually comes in, and some people like this one. It actually comes in with the axes labeled, which can be quite handy. So what the heck, I'll go ahead and I'll use this one right now. Okay, so I'm going to rename this empty. I'm going to come over here to the object panel, which is the orange cube, and right here it's going to be called empty, and I'm going to go ahead and call this cam control. Or no, I'll call it cam track. Okay, so that's my cam track. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this window so I can actually look through the camera angle at the same time as a 3D window. So to do that, I'm going to do a vertical split. So I'm going to come up here to the top, put my mouse pointer right here, and when it becomes a double arrow, I'm going to right mouse click, left mouse click, split area, and then I'll just go ahead and left click to do that. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this toolbar here by pressing T. And actually I don't need this toolbar over here in this window, so I'll press T. And in my right window over here I'm going to press numpad 0, and that way I'm always looking through my camera view. So that's sort of my director's view. Okay, now I'll select my camera and I'll come over here to the right hand side, and I'm going to click on this new panel here that's called Object Constraints, and it looks like 2 little chain links. So I'm going to say add an object constraint to the camera, and you'll see there's a category here called tracking, and I'm going to choose track 2. And you get a bunch of options here, and notice that the top box here is red. That basically is telling you that something's wrong, something's not set up correctly. So I'm going to say that the target, what's the target? I'm going to click, and I can choose through all the objects in my scene, and I'm going to choose camera track, and you'll see that the camera now is facing downward, and it's kind of upside down and that kind of thing. So the settings that I found that work out quite well is right here. So you see that there's a row here that says 2, and you have all the axes options, and then you have a little pop-up menu that says up. So what worked for me was right here where it says 2, I ended up choosing -Z, and then you'll notice that it's still red, indicating something's off. And then right here where it said up, I changed that to the y-axis. And now it's looking right straight at my empty. I'll select the empty here. It's looking right straight at it. It's keeping it in the center of its view. And the camera is now facing right side up. So you can see that there. So I'm going to select, the real test is I'm going to select the empty. And now if I press G and grab and move the empty around, check that out. You'll notice in my right hand window my camera is tracking it, and wherever it goes, up, down, all over, it will look at it. Alright, so we're pretty much set and ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my empty here at the center of my world. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to press Option G, and now it's smack dab center in the world there. I'm also going to press the letter N for numeric or number, and you can also do it over here. If you don't press Option G, let's say my empty is over here, I can just come over here to where it says location and just 0, tab, 0, tab, 0, and do it that way. It's a little slower, but gets the job done. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting up my keyframes now, and I could just keyframe the entire camera and have the camera always stare at the center of the scene, and it would always be looking at my empty there. But to get some other cool angles, I can also go ahead and animate the empty. So I think I'm going to start off with it looking at the center of the scene right now. So again, if I move my camera, you'll see that it automatically will track the shot. So I think I want to go ahead, and I'm going to go to top view. So here's numpad 7, and I'm going to get a little bit more confusing here. And I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, this is going to be a perspective view. Okay, good. So there's my three window setup. So in the top view, I can move my camera around anywhere I want in the world. And then I've got a perspective view here, so I can really kind of see things from a good angle. And then, of course, I've got my camera view over here, so I can really see sort of my director's shot. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start doing some keyframing here. I'll go ahead and save. All right, so I think I want to start it here. So on frame 1, I'll go ahead and I'm going to insert a keyframe. And I'm not really going to be recording or changing the rotation and scale. So I'm just going to go ahead and be choosing location from here on out. So I'll go ahead and do that and record a keyframe there. And then I'll come down here to my dope sheet, close up my camera, and that way I can just see it like that. Okay, good. So as the cubes come out here, I now want the camera to come out to be able to see all the action of the cubes going like that. So if my camera comes out, I could have it come out way out here, but that's maybe kind of crazy. So maybe I'll have the camera swing around to this left-hand side, and then I'll maybe then come over here and I'll select my camera track. And my camera track, I think I'm going to move that. And the camera track is going to actually move down the line. And maybe I'll move the camera out here. Maybe take the camera track. Put it somewhere like that. Okay, so now I'm going to select the camera track and the camera, both objects, and I'll hit I and location. Okay, so let's see. Now the problem is that I did not set a keyframe for frame 1 of the camera track, and I should have. So I'm going to go ahead and set it back to 0, 0, 0, and I need to keyframe that location there. Okay, now it should work. So now you can see my camera view, the cubes go out, my camera follows it. Okay, so that looks all right. Okay, so now moving on, the cubes come back in, and they come back in on frame, or they come back in a little bit. So maybe they do that. Okay, I'll bring and a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and bring the camera up a little bit in the air just to get a little height difference, so that could be kind of interesting. Let's see. Okay, so now I need to select both objects. I need to select the camera track and the camera. Insert, location. Okay, next one is where I get all these cubes pop out, so I want that to be a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to select my camera track, and my camera track I think is going to go all the way to the center of that area there. I'll select my camera, and maybe my camera is going to go back, maybe around a little bit like this. Okay, good. And the process is the same. You're going to select your camera track, and you're going to select your camera, both objects. You're going to insert a keyframe on the location, and you get the idea. You're going to rinse and repeat. Okay, so now that this does something interesting here, and it does this whole curvy thing, now maybe I'll have the camera track go to this end of the tube, and the camera maybe swings around and comes through here and kind of looks through it, but maybe comes out a little bit. Maybe it goes in. Again, select the camera track. Shift right click, select the camera, insert a location frame. Okay, so now I'm going to select my camera, and maybe I'll go down a few frames and move the camera out, create this zoom effect. Again, select my camera track, select my camera, insert a keyframe. Okay, so now it's doing this whole little scaling thing, so I really want to see that better. Okay, this is why I have all these windows here, so I can actually see what the heck is going on. Okay, so something like that. So maybe I want an angle there. There we go. Insert keyframe. So you basically get the idea. So I'm going to go back and take a look at these here. And it looks like my, grab and move that over one. There we go. Okay, so if I take a look at this now, go back to frame one. Keep in mind that I want to look at this camera view. Okay, so this is where I can really look at things and see if the camera is going crazy and making my viewer sick. And there you go. You can see, and I haven't keyframed the end there. So you can go ahead and you can press play and see what your first run of camera movements is like. Obviously, if the camera movement is too fast and you think it needs to slow down, you can come down here to the dope sheet, find your camera, press G and grab and move your keyframes around, and there you go. And you can go ahead and tweak any of the movements. So if I needed to edit any of these movements here, so I could say, okay, right, let's say on frame 120, that's where I want to edit the camera track's position. Maybe I don't want it to be in the center. Maybe I want it to be over here, so it's more in the center here. Maybe I want it to be up on the z-axis a little bit, so a little higher angle. So you make the change, and then you just re-keyframe it by pressing I in location, and now that's the new camera angle. Okay, I hope this helped you, and good luck.